Now we will talk about vectors. The first thing we should do is include the vector class. And I'm using the vector name from the standard library. And to declare a vector of type integer, we write down vector and then angled brackets and then the type, and then we name it whatever we want. And now we have an empty vector which of size 0 and doesn't have any elements inside it. We can directly add elements using equal sign and curly braces, where inside the curly braces we can add elements. Since we have type integer, we just need to add integer elements like numbers, and we can add how many we want. The size is dynamic, so we don't need to specify the size of the vector, and we can remove the equal sign and initialize it directly like this. Or we can use the parentheses and add the value multiple of times. So this one, which is ivec, is gonna have a length of 3, capacity of 3, and it will have 3 elements, which are where the values are number 4. So 3 values inside it with a repeated number 4. And this vector can be of types class, any class you want. If you created a class, you can just declare a vector of that class. And it can be 2-dimensional, so we can have a vector of vectors of type string, and the way we initialize it, we just add another brackets inside the outer brackets, and then we can add the strings inside it. We can add more string if we want, and we can have a vector that copies the value inside ivec inside another vector, and as you can see in the debugger, it's exactly the same as ivec. Or we can use the equal sign to copy the elements of another vector, or we can declare a vector with 3 values inside it, which are defaulted to 0 in this case because it's an integer. If we change it to string, it will have empty strings inside it. Or you can use the parentheses to initialize it to 3 values, which are AA, as you can see here. And we can access the elements inside it using a for ranged loop, where we can just write auto and whatever variable name, and then we choose one of them. We choose one v4, and we can print the values inside the vector using the I, and we can see now that we have printed the values inside v4. Or we can use an indexed for loop, where we declare the I to 0, and then we use the size of it. So if it's smaller, we don't get out of bounds, out of the index inside the vector, and we just see out v4 and then square brackets and then the I, and then just add space between them. Now we printed 2, 3, 4, which are the values inside the vector. Since the capacity is 3, the size of it is 3, we're gonna loop until the number 2. So we access 0, 1, 2, and we print them. We access v4 0, v4 1 like this, v4 0, v4 1, and then v4 2, and then the loop stops and it gets out of the loop. When the I becomes 3, it will get out of the loop. Using the ranged for loop, we can change the values inside it using the auto, and then reference for I for v4. So now we have a reference variable for each element inside the vector v4, and now we can just change the number inside it whatever we want. We just can, let's say, make them all number 2, and after it we can just see out the I and add space between them. And as you can see, all the I's has changed, and we can access them afterwards to see if they have actually changed. And if we remove the say out and now print them, we can see that they became 2. So we have changed the values inside the vector to number 2. Not change 3 and 4 to number 2 and 2 to, but technically. We can do the same thing with an indexed for loop. We're using the size also, v for the size, and we can write v for I, and then we equal sign, and then let's say v for I plus 1 to increment 1 for each one. And now if we print the values inside it, every value has been incremented by 1. 2 becomes 3, 3, 4, and 4, 5. So it's a bad idea to specify the size of the vector because it leads to poor performance, and it's unnecessary unless it's a vector of the same value, like you declare a couple of elements with the same values like we did with the parentheses right here. Otherwise, using this is not a good idea. The vector class has built-in functions, and we can use as an example, if we create a for loop that iterates 99 times, starting from 0 to 99, it's gonna push back this number at the end of the vector, and that vector will grow as long as we keep adding elements to it. So it's gonna grow dynamically, and as you can see, it keeps growing as we step over in the debugger, and we can see now it reached 4 and then 5, and the capacity has increased to 8, and the more we add, let's say 8, it's gonna multiply it by 2, so now it's gonna be 16, and the capacity will become 16, and length is now 9. When we reach 16 and surpass it, it's gonna multiply by 2, capacity is multiplied by 2, and it's gonna keep repeating the for loop, and all of our elements has been pushed back inside the next built-in function for vectors is empty. To check if a vector is empty, if I create a vector of string and name it st string vector, and I can check if the vector is empty just by writing dot operator and then empty, and then I can see out anything, print out something, just writing stv is empty, and if I run the program I can see that stv is empty. Now I can create a variable to store text inside it, so the variable of type string called text, and I can create a loop to take input from the user, and I can push back the input we're taking from the user into the vector. So I can just write stv.pushback and text, and then I can check if the vector size has become, let's say 4, it's bigger than 4, so more than 4 elements inside it. Then we break out of the loop, the while loop. So here if I add A and B, C, D, E, and I will see out a text to make it easy to understand what's happening. So now when we run the program, I can write A white space B, white space C, white space D, and then W. And now we can create a ranged for loop, stv, and see out st. So now I create A, B, C, D, E, and as you can see, it has appended all the text that I entered. Can write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, as it only stores the first 5 elements. And one important note is to not change the size of the vector inside a ranged for loop, because that would introduce bugs. So if we have another vector and we want to compare them both, we want to compare if they are equal or greater than the other or less than the other or not equal, we can do those operations between 2 vectors of the same type. Obviously, we can do it if we are comparing an integer to a string. So now we have 2 strings. We can enter the vector we want. Let's say if it is A, B, C, D, E. So it will take only the first 4 ones, because that's what I have added the condition to add only at maximum 4 elements. And now we can see that they are both equal, because this one is ABCD and this one is also ABCD. If I change this one to Z, if I add into the input Z instead of D, then add anything here, we can see now they are not equal, even if they both have the same size, like they both have 4 elements inside them, but they are not equal because the last one is not the same as this one. And if we remove this condition, if we comment it out, and now we enter again the same, let's say R, and here anything, we can see that vector 2 is less than or equal to STV. If we remove the equal sign, and we check again, A, B, C, E, and then here, whatever. So we have A, B, C, E, and now we have vector 2 is less than or equal to. Yeah, the point is, if the last string on the alphabetical order is larger, is greater, is at a higher place, in the sequentially, if it's after the letter like A, B, C, it will be larger. So if I add like R and then B, C, D, you can see that it's still less than vector 2, still less than STV, the one we entered, because it has the R as the first letter. So that's how the comparison works. So if I run the program one last time and enter A, B, C, and then C again, and you can see now vector 2 is greater than STV. I forgot the then, but hopefully get the point, because it has D, which is greater than the C. Okay, what if this one has double D at the end of it, like has two Ds at the end? I can enter A, B, C, D, and then D again to not count, and we can see that vector 2 is greater. Let's try Z, oops, A, B, C, Z, and even if it has two letters afterwards, so it's larger in size, it still counts that this one has Z, which means the STB is greater than the vector 2. So in this example, if we try to access a vector that has no elements, it will cause a buffer overflow, which is a disaster. And the same thing happens when we try to access it even outside a for loop, just using the square brackets and the index. And the last element inside it is going to be number 9. So if we access the number 10, we are accessing an element that doesn't exist inside the vector. If you have a vector of size 10, like this one. To test our understanding for vectors, we should create a program that would use a vector. And this program is going to count the number of grades by clusters of 10. This is supposed to be 0 to 9, and this one 10 to 19, this one 20 to 29, and you get a point, 30 to 39. And inside the table we are counting the occurrences of this. So each score from 0 to 9 will get recorded if we enter, as an example, 9 or 8 in our program, or if we enter 10, it's gonna get recorded here, and that amount will increase each time we enter a certain number depending on the score in the table. So first we start with just declaring a vector, and then we use unsigned integer or just unsigned, it's the same thing, and then we name it scores, and then we have to initialize them to 10. We initialize 10 of them, so the size of it is going to be 10 and the values inside are zeros. So it's going to have 10 elements with the value 0. And then we have to also have another unsigned for the input. We can name it input to take input from the user, and then we just declare a while loop, and we use the cin and extraction operator and then the input. And inside the while loop, now we have to check if the input the user has entered is smaller than 100 or equals to 100. So if input is less than or equals to 100, then here we are going to increment something. So we have different ways of doing it. The most effective one, which is one line, is this one. And the size here, I just noticed that it should be 11, not 10 elements, it should be 11 elements. So we increment the scores, we access the index of the input the user just entered, and then we divide it by 10. So now if the user has entered 100, it will get converted to 10, and then we increment that value inside the index 10. So we basically are accessing the value inside whatever index we enter. As the previous example, if we entered 100, we're gonna access index 10, and inside the index 10 we're just incrementing that number. It's starting from 0. Each time we enter 100, it's gonna increment it by 1. And yeah, that's basically the whole program. After taking the input and storing them, we just create a arranged for loop, where we just access the numbers inside the vector and we print them. And after that, we should have a case where we just exit out of the while loop. So we just add an else and then a break if we enter something else other than, which is not smaller than 100 or equals to 100. Then we are gonna break out of the loop. Since it's an unsigned integer, then we can't enter minus values. Minus values will get handled as numbers that are greater than 100. I've added just a text. I outputted just a text to visualize how would the result look like after we finish entering our input. And here I'm printing the values inside the vector. So now let's enter 100. Let's enter 34. Let's enter 44. Let's also enter 72, 73, and 10. And then let's enter 200. And as you can see, it has counted each one. So the 0 we entered correct. We entered 30 something, 34, and then 44, counted it. 73, counted. 0, it was, first one. And the 200, we entered 100. We entered 100 first, which is here, counted. And let's enter it twice, or 3 times. Then 22, 23, 25. Let's enter 200. Enter it 103 times is correct, and 20 is 3 times also, which is correct. And that's how the program works. If you don't understand this operation, you can simplify it by using unsigned as an example, index, then equals, just store this, the value of them. And then you can say that score, enter the index of them. We need the brackets. You can either enter scores index equals also scores index to access the value inside, and then adding 1. This one is simpler, but you add more lines and you create a new variable. So yeah, in the other one it's easier because you don't create a new variable, or it's just a one-liner, but they do the same thing. If you enter 100, 200, yeah, it counts it. Yeah, it works the same way. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like and follow me for more videos.